Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Telling It Like It Is. My name is Jade Alberts, the founder of Peer Guidance. We're a purpose before profit group that love sharing our knowledge, love helping companies scale and grow. If you're looking for anything, mental health, business development, give us a shout. We're ready to go. Scrolling across the bottom is Founders Coffee every Tuesday, 7:30 a.m. That's been running for 7.5 years as well. Great place to meet like-minded people. And it's obviously for entrepreneurs, founders, and even students. And of course, speaking of students, we're going to get into TKS. I can't believe I haven't had TKS, the Knowledge Society, on before. But when Azar reached out in the summer, I'm excited about this conversation. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me on here. I'm stoked to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
I've always what you guys have done, what you stood for. I that I before you. But you know what? I want to hear a little bit about you, a little bit about your passion before we get into and then why you believe that why you came on as the executive director of TKS.
Yeah, sounds good. So my background has always been in like entrepreneurship, startups, that kind of thing. And so when I graduated from the University of Victoria, I was in the BCom program over there. And as soon as I graduated, jumped into working for different tech companies, more on like the business and growth side of things. And so I was doing that for a few years. Eventually, I was like, okay, I want to try actually starting a business myself. And so I started doing Matrix Furniture Canada, which was nothing to do with tech. It was like a manufacturing business. So we worked on, or we were building Murphy beds. So essentially like the beds that come off the wall. And we were supplying it to universities for dorm rooms. We were supplying it to developers who were building like big, condo units kind of thing. We even met with the Toronto Raptors, the basketball team, to see how we can implement it for their employees who would stay late overnight and wanted, a bed that turned into a desk kind of thing. And unfortunately, COVID ended that business. Just our manufacturer was in China. And so like the whole supply chain kind of got screwed up. And then I shifted over into venture capital for a bit, did that for a year. And through that is where I kind of learned about TKS, because I went into a high school in Vancouver called Mulgrave, and I was working with one of their like entrepreneurship classes. And I went in, and the whole thing was I was supposed to go in and give like a presentation on what venture capital was. And it ended up turning into this really interactive workshop where the kids were coming up and like pitching business ideas. And I was like poking holes as if I was a VC. And it was like a really fun, like hour and a half or however long it was for me. And the teacher at that school was like, hey, like, have you heard of this like company called TKS? You might be a really good fit for it, like if you enjoyed doing this kind of thing with the kids. And I was like, yeah, no, I've never heard of this before. And as soon as he told me about it, I actually like kind of teared up a little bit, because I was like, wow, like this is like, if I could do this as like a job, that would be sick. Like this would be such a cool job. If like every day I could come in and like, change kids' lives and like make them realize what they're capable of doing. And so that's how I kind of got introduced to TKS. And I went through this like 8-month long like application process for this job, and ended up getting it. And the only opening that they had as a director was in Calgary. And so I'm from Vancouver, and I had to like move all the way like out here. I didn't know anyone. And so, yeah, it's been like a whole like shift for me, but it's been really fun.
Well, I think that's thanks for sharing your background, because I always think it's important for especially for context on what will make you a good leader, or especially when it comes to our children. I mean, our oldest daughter just heading off to university the first year. Our youngest is just into grade 10.
Yeah.
So, I mean, one would be right in the middle of the TKS age group, and one would be kind of at the older
Yeah.
end. And I truly love the fact, and a lot of the things that I've done with both of our daughters are very good academically. Ray has got scholarships, and obviously we're all proud of our children. But I think this would have been a great program, for especially for Rhea. Like, I mean, and I'm going to use my girls as our girls as an example this whole time, because when you think about it, you get a girl as young as 13. I've brought our girls pitch things. I've brought them to be female entrepreneurs, to be role models. I've brought them to TNT events. I brought them in and tried to immerse them in that business environment, because there's so many impressive people in our community here in Calgary and Alberta. So, why don't you share a little bit, thinking about what I did without doing, the TKS, but, what would be some of the benefits of these kids, and talk about the ages and
Yeah.
what
So,
they
I
do.
mean, to your point, like none of the like directors here at TKS, like myself, like none of us have like a teaching background. Like we're not formal teachers. So we all have different like work in experience, industry experience, working for, even the founders, like they came, like Naveed had his own company before starting TKS. Naveed was in consulting, working for McKinsey. Pranav, who's our director in Vancouver, he's like comes with an engineering background. Esther, who's in San Francisco, she has like a gene editing background. She was like on a Netflix show. So we have like all this like experience, like different experience from our directors that are like real world experience. And so we really lean on that when we're teaching our sessions. And the whole thing here at TKS is like, how can we bring that like kind of non-school environment to the students and like kind of immerse them into like what the real world kind of looks like and what the real world will expect of them as they kind of continue moving forwards. And so that's what, I mean, ultimately that's what TKS is all about. It's for these like really ambitious, teenagers, 13 to 18 years old kind of thing, who want to go off and solve like the biggest problems in the world and like make an impact. And so, through this program, they'll learn about the emerging tech and science, whether it's, quantum computing or artificial intelligence or gene editing or brain computer interfaces or things like that. But they'll also learn about like the soft skills. And I think that's like one of the most underrated parts about the program is like, even just as something as simple as like how to give a good handshake, or if you're in an interview, like how to look at, like make eye contact and like look in the person's eyes and not just like be straying away like elsewhere. Or just like how to network effectively, how to work in teams effectively, how to like put together like a pitch deck that, that would impress like an executive at like a top company in the world, right? And so speaking of the top companies, we also work with a lot of these top companies. Like last year we worked with IKEA, Microsoft, Samsung, and like they'll come in and be like, hey, like TKS students, we're experiencing this like business problem right now. Can you help us? And so the TKS kids will like literally go through, like Microsoft, for example, last year, they were like, with all this AI growth that's happening in the world today, we need more and more data centers. But with that, it's like, it becomes really like, it's not very sustainable because it takes up a lot of energy to run these data centers. So how do we kind of go about this? So we had our TKS students were like looking into microfluidity. They were looking into like ionic wind for cooling these data centers. And so they started coming up with these really innovative solutions. And like, where else does a 14-year-old kid get to do things like that? Or where else does a 14-year-old kid get to go work with like Google X, like at the moonshot factory? Like these are just such crazy opportunities that these kids can get. And it's a program I wish I had when I was their age, so yeah, it's just pretty cool.
And I just want to expand on that point, because I think it's something very, very important, those soft skills, right? And I'm not knocking our education system. I think it's extremely important. But as you can see behind me, I also think sports is very important. Getting in that team mentality, learning to work with others, learning how to take constructive feedback when maybe you've done something wrong, or learn to work within a team, however it may be. And I think that's such an important thing. Like you said, little eye contact. Rhea got a job when she was 16. She wanted a job. Grayson just got her first job here at Cactus Club. And we talked about interviews, doing interviews, talking interviews. My wife hires for Mackenzie Financial. So we were working on little things like that. So some of these kids may not have access to that because maybe parents just don't do it, or don't think about it, or whatever it may be. So having something like TKS is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can rely on traditional school these days to kind of teach your kids everything. And like the curriculum is so like it's slow changing, right? The world is moving way faster than the pace of change in the education system. And so there's like those soft skills, like you can't rely on schools to necessarily teach that. It's typical in regular school systems where students will get a grade and then, minimal feedback on it, and they just move on to the next like exam or whatever they have. And so and then on top of that, they're not learning about like the latest advancements in artificial intelligence or what Figure AI is doing with their humanoid robots. Like they're not learning these things. And it's like, how are you not learning about this? This is like where the world is going. And if you guys want jobs in the future, like you're going to have to know about these things. So it's like, why aren't they learning about that? But then also like, that piece about feedback that I mentioned, like we say at TKS, like our whole thing is giving unfiltered, like non-sugar coated feedback to the kids. So I literally tell them like, I will treat you like how I would treat any employee at any company that I work at. Like, I'm not going to like mess around with you guys. Like I will treat you like an adult here. And I think that also gives them a sense of just like, I don't know, like not independence, but like it makes them feel like, they're not just some young little kid anymore. Like it makes them feel like, hey, like I'm actually being listened to and treated like, an adult here, which is kind of like, I think they appreciate that as well.
Oh, I think that's such a great comment. Again, I'm talking with Azar, the executive director of TKS. If you want more information on it, go to the comments section, tks.world. It's right there. Click on it, take you directly to the website. I love that statement that you treat them like an adult. You treat them that they have feedback. I mean, I've been lucky enough to coach our girls in the off season, and I don't have them call me dad in the cage. And there's times where I said, get out of the cage, come back when you're ready to hit. Like, and it would be no different than what my coach told me or what I would tell another, girl that's in there. If you're not ready, get out, come back when you're ready. And I think that feedback, and maybe I'm being a little extreme, and I probably have, or maybe not, maybe a few more swear words, but I think that feedback is important. They need to understand the real world. And I think that's something that kids are missing.
Yeah. It's funny. You mentioned about like your kids and stuff. Like my dad, like I'd also like, just cause he's my dad, I wouldn't like listen to him all the time. Like you'd give me great advice, but I'd just like want to fight it. And I think a lot of the kids are kind of the same way where, even if like a parent tells them something, it's like, it comes across differently if like I tell them versus if like their parent tells them something. And so I've actually got that comment from a few parents in the past where it's like, hey, I've told my kids like the exact same thing, but they actually listen to you. So yeah, I think it's, that's kind of, yeah.
Well, I think I'm like, thanks for the comment. And I've got to post it up here. Like, I think this is just a simple question that we can actually answer. Usually I say, get to them in the comment section and after you can go answer it in there as well. But, how do we manage the lack of experience for being held accountable? Like they want to do it, but how do we manage that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How do we manage the lack of experience in being held accountable? Many kids want to be treated like adults, but when it happens, they struggle to take it.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Yeah, what I tell the students at TKS is that like I'm going to be hard on you, but it's all of this is like for your own benefit. Like it's for your own growth. Like I'm not just trying to be a dick. Like, like I'm like the reason I'm telling you like things the way I'm telling you is like literally to help you. Like I don't have to be here at TKS. Like I could be working in venture capital still. I could be, going off and like starting my own company. Actually, I'm starting a different kind of business on the side. But like, yeah, no, I think like it's important for them to realize like why I'm here and like don't have to be doing this. Like my purpose of doing TKS is literally to make an impact myself. And I'm doing that through like enabling them to make an impact. And so it's like, in order for me to do that, I have to be kind of like hard on them. And I think they appreciate that. Like they will tell me after too, they'll be like, Azar, like what's great is they'll come into the program being a bit nervous and like being like, oh, like, afraid to get the feedback, but like a month in and they'll be like seeking that feedback out. Like they will come to me and be like, Azar, like, give me more feedback. Like, tell me what's wrong with this. And I love that because that just shows that they're like really wanting to grow. And so when you see some of these TKS kids come in at the start of the year versus, 9.5 months later after the program, like they look like totally different kids. Like, they don't look like the same kid that came in. So it's awesome to see. And I love that they come in looking for that unsugar-coated feedback.
And I mean, that's something, this is called telling it like it is, because that's something that I do. And I think that's something that's always separated it's always made me successful because I wear my heart on my shoulder. I tell the truth. You may not want to hear it. You may not like it, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I think people have to start hearing this a little earlier, just like Mike says in the comments here. Like, doesn't matter. I mean, I've been telling our girls since they've been, little. We've talked about everything with them, and we've told them, like, that's not good, or it is good, or keep doing it, or stop doing it, or whatever it may be. But it's real life advice that's going to prepare them for the future. It's not, what they're going to learn in math class. Like, I'm a university dropout. I did okay. And whenever I'm speaking at a university, I lead with that I'm the dumbest person in the room. So but again, I learned, I fail. I still fail. Every day I fail multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's another, I mean, you said it kind of perfectly, not to say that you're dumb or anything like that, but like to be, I mean, like the people who are the most successful or start the biggest companies in the world, it's not because they're just like this really smart. It's because they just like work really hard and they have this like obsession and they really lean into that, and they're curious and all that kind of stuff. And so that's another thing I tried to tell these kids at TKS is like, they come in thinking they have to be the smartest person in the world. They think that like Bill Gates, oh my God, he built Microsoft, he's a genius. But like, no, it's like Bill Gates was building computers when he was like 13 years old. Like he was obsessed. He started Microsoft when he was 20, but there was like a decade worth of like him, messing around with computers during a time, by the way, where ChatGPT or YouTube or none of those things existed. And so like for these students, I'm like, guys, you have like everything is at the palm of your hands right now. Like think of like I use this analogy a lot, but like the Wright brothers, who like flew the first, like had the first sustained flight, right? Like that was during a time when Morse code was the standard of like communication. Like telephones were just starting to come out at that time. And it's like, these guys didn't even go to university. Like that was the main way of education back in the day, was like, you have to go to university to learn anything. There was no computer. And these guys didn't even go to university. So how the heck did these two non-graduates from even high school go off and like fly the freaking airplane, which is like what we use today to like get around? Like, how did that happen? And it's like, it's not because they were like smart. It's not because they just like knew everything about everything. They actually didn't. So it's like, but they just like grinded really hard, and they were just super curious and ambitious and like didn't take no for an answer. And I'm like, that's the kind of mindset you guys need to have. Plus you have all these tools now that'll help you. So.
And I think that's a good analogy. And I think it goes back to our earliest entrepreneurs as farmers, right? Like, I think of my uncle and my cousins, like they can fix anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't if there's something wrong, they're fixing it. They're not throwing it out. They might need that for something that they need later to fix something else. And again, I think having that mentality and having, TKS teach these kids, outside of school is extremely important.
Yeah. Yeah. There needs to be like an additional, a support system for these kids who want to go off and do crazy things in the world. Unfortunately, that just doesn't really exist, which is why TKS is so important, I think.
Oh, I agree. Again, I'm talking with Azar. Click on the website. It's in the comments section, tks.world. It'll take you directly there for any more information. Or again, feel free to ask questions or make comments like like you are in the comments section right now. Well, let's talk a little bit about, so if somebody's watching this and, they're hanging around and they've got a 13 to 18-year-old child, why don't you talk a little bit about, obviously TKS here, most of the people listening are in Canada. So like, how do they get involved? What do they do? What requirements do they need?
Yeah. So, I mean, TKS, we're actually a global company, right? So I know a lot of the audience is probably here in Calgary or in Canada at least. And so we do have in-person locations in Calgary. I'm the Calgary director. But then we also have like a program in Vancouver. We have a program in Toronto. We just launched in San Francisco this year. We're in New York. We're also in Dubai. And so like, these are like in person, like students actually come in on the weekends for like 3 hours a weekend and do the program. It's kind of like an extracurricular activity for them. It's like no different than if they were playing a sport kind of thing. So, they'll have their practices and then their games. It's like, we have our TKS session on the weekend for 3 hours. And then there's like an expectation that they'll work for, 3 hours or so during the week on their own time. But then we also have like a global, like a virtual program as well. So we have students from like, Uganda joining, or London, or, Slovenia, or wherever like in the world that students are. And so what's kind of cool about this program is that, not like, even if you're in like the Calgary program or Vancouver or wherever, you actually like are part of this like global network. And so you get, I think we have like over 5,000 alumni now. And everyone has access to everyone. Like we use Slack to communicate, and everyone has a Slack account. And so that means that the current students get a chance to interact with like people from all over the place. And we encourage that. We call it brain dates. So it's kind of like coffee chats, where we'll get the students to interact with as many people as possible. But yeah, like if anyone's interested in joining, like it's like if you go to the website, I think Jade just posted it. You can check it out, and applications are closed for this year. But next year, we start in September, and the applications will open, I think, later this year or early next year for the next year program. And we kind of, right off the start, we kind of train them by making them fill out an application, and there's like an interview process for the kids. And so for a lot of these kids, it's their first time ever, getting an interview or anything like that. And so, we kind of right off the start kind of get them involved with, hey, let's expose them to that. Let's show them, what the real world is kind of going to be like just through like our interview process alone. And so, like encourage anyone to apply, and like would love to meet them. And you can also feel free to send me an email. My email is azar@tks.world if you have any like questions or anything like that.
Just click on the comment section. It'll take you directly to the website. I love the fact that you actually have a world. And I wasn't really going to touch on that, but the point that you just made, that they're able to talk with other, peers from around the world, that's got to be so beneficial, having so many different perspectives on maybe so many different topics and worldviews.
Yeah, no, totally. And what's really cool about it is like we have so many kids at TKS that go off and do like crazy things. And like all of our like new incoming students have access to all of these. Like they're all in our community. They have like access to their Slack profiles, and so they can like DM anyone. Like, so for example, like Synex Medical, like it's a company that focuses on non-invasive glucose monitoring. Was started by a TKS student. His name was Ben Nashman. They just raised like 20 something million dollars last year. Bordy AI, I don't know if you've heard of Bordy AI. They're kind of like a voice first networking platform using AI, and they were founded. Two of the co-founders are TKS students. They just raised 20 something million dollars earlier this year. Utopia Labs, blockchain company, got acquired by Coinbase last year, started by a TKS student. And so like all of these like founders doing crazy things, or like, people working at different companies, like, Shuggin's working at Tesla. Ananya was working at Neuralink. I think now she's somewhere else. Like all of Adam's working at OpenAI right now. Again, these are like teenagers. And so it's like these students have access to not just like their current Innovate students that are doing all the stuff in the program this year, but they have access to all of these other students that have gone on and are now currently doing crazy things, working at cool companies, working at top research facilities. And so that community piece is like also super underrated element of TKS. In fact, it might be the biggest thing that students take away from this experience, is like the relationships that they build through it. And once they go through the program, they're an alumni for life. They'll always have access to Slack in the community. So that never goes away.
I think that's to me, that's the most important part, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Founders Coffee was started for, I call it my poor man's EO, entrepreneurs organization, right? They don't have a lot of these early stage don't have that 1.25. I know they can get into EO grow, and then hopefully you get into YPO. And I mean, those networks and the things that you talk about and the stuff that I gained from being involved or having access to those networks were absolutely priceless. And the people that I met and the help that I get and the questions, and more importantly, the introductions made from those networks, helped me immensely.
Yeah. That's honestly, that's totally one of the biggest things, is like the network. Like, who do you know? And I tell this to the TKS kids like now as well, like, everyone thinks like resumes are the way to get jobs these days. I don't think I don't think any of the companies I worked at like was actually through the traditional like process of submitting a resume and getting the job. It was mostly through like people, like someone recommended someone for this job, or like, oh, I think this person would be a good fit for the role, and you kind of get your foot in the door that way. And so like the relationship aspect is so important. And so like, yeah, I totally agree. It's like more important than, and this goes to the point we were making earlier about like smartness or like knowledge and skills. Like that kind of stuff can be learned. Like you can learn, whatever skills you need to learn, but like what's harder to build is like the network, and what's harder to build is like the mindsets that you need to have, like get it done or figure it out or whatever. Like but you need that's the stuff that, we kind of work on with the kids here at TKS, and like provide them like the community element of it and stuff like that. So yeah, I totally fully agree with you on that point.
Yeah, I mean, when we're hiring or helping a company hire, it always comes from within. And
Yeah.
I mean, Grayson got her job because Rhea was at the Cactus Club, and I knew the manager at the Cactus Club. And again, it's who you know. I mean, that's just the way the world works.
Yeah, it's who you know, and it's also like I think it's shifting to like companies want to see what kids are or like what, not just kids, but what anyone they hire is actually building now. So it's like more impressive than a resume. It's like, okay, let's see your portfolio. Let's see what you've actually built, right? And school doesn't optimize for that. That's the other thing about school is like it's like, okay, school's all about like, getting a good grade, going off to university. The whole point of going through high school is like to get to university, right? But for TKS, it's like, okay, like that's the low bar expectation. Our expectations are up here. It's like, how can we get you doing like actually making impact in the world? And what that involves is like literally putting together a portfolio. Like what simulations did you run? What articles did you put together? What videos have you made? Like showcasing like that, certain thing about, whatever topic it is that you want to focus on. And so, I think that's like also really important. Like for example, and another thing I'll comment on is like, if you're a student who's like grade 11, 12 applying to university, and you submit a resume that talks about, oh, like I have a 98% average. I have, I volunteered here. I was the club captain of whatever. I do debate. Like, cool. Every kid does that. Right. But how can you stand out? And we talk about this at TKS, like how can you be like what we call the red dot? Like how do you stand out? And so in that application, what if it were to say something along the lines of, I created one of the most efficient solar cells in the world, or, I worked with, or I created a new biomaterial that is being used by Adidas in one of their new shoes. Or, I worked with IKEA this year to optimize their supply chain. And like all of those things, it's like, yeah, obviously that's way more impressive, or like that sounds way more impressive. That's really cool. Like kids actually working, doing cool things, making impact in the world versus all these other kids who are just simply, doing what everyone else is doing, trying to get a good grade and, doing their volunteering or whatever. So it's like, let's try to shift to doing more project oriented things, because that's what actually people care about when they're hiring. It's like, what have you actually done? Let's see it.
No, I love it. And I 100% agree with you on that for sure. So what, I know that you're obviously in Calgary, you're helping to expand it. So what's next for TKS? Let's just talk more specifically here, locally in Calgary or Alberta.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's more of, honestly, it's more of the same. Like this TKS has been around for 9 years now. And we've really developed a program that I think works really well. Even just in Calgary alone, last year, we had a lot of students come out of it with like internships, or even starting their own companies or working on projects that they started during TKS, like even now. And so I think it's just like, okay, that we know that the system works. It's just about, okay, how can we get the word out there a little bit more to get more students involved into the program. And so, and the other element of it is I'd also really like to partner with some of the local companies here in Calgary. So last year, for example, we took the students into Enbridge Innovation Labs, and students spent like a whole afternoon, looking at some of the, latest, technologies that Enbridge is using. They got to test out their virtual reality headsets, and they got to see some of like the inner workings of the technology aspect of things, how they're being used in the company. We took them to University of Calgary to see the different like innovation hubs out there. So they got to check that out, see some of the companies working out of there. We took them to HealthSim, which is one of the, fastest growing fintech companies here in Calgary. And they got to spend like an hour with Nick, who's the founder there, doing like a little 1 hour conversation about how he started his company and challenges that he faced and all that kind of stuff. And so, I'd love to like see what other companies we can get involved with for this year, so that we can take the students in. Like I want to create it as immersive of an experience as possible for the kids. And so, yeah, any partnerships, would love, like if anyone's listening and has, any opportunities like that, would love to chat further. And then, it's just about, getting more kids into the program and helping them out and getting them more exposed to the real world.
And I just tagged, I'll send you the link later, but I just tagged Jason Cameron in here from the Wave Center from the city of Calgary and all the tech that they're doing in the center. So that'll be a good, somebody that I think would be really cool to take the kids to see.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Actually, I went, I checked out the Wave Center when they first launched. They have some pretty cool stuff in there. I saw they have like a VR room. They have like they actually have like a photonic quantum computer kind of thing there. It's a cool facility.
Well, yeah. And I just tag Stan as well. So from Bow Valley College. So, there'll be a few in there that we'll get at. We could probably tag people all day here. No, I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it. And it's been too long, and I've known about it, but I'm glad that we're able to get a little bit of the a word out there a little more. But I do have one more question for you, Azar. If you had one piece of advice for a student on why they should get involved, what would that be? I know we just talked about that for half an hour, but just something quick.
Yeah, I kind of touched on it, but I think the point of like that they have more opportunities now than ever before. I think that's just a really important thing for them to understand. And that, with all the tools that are available and accessible to them now, and the way the world is kind of going, that they have the opportunity to really make impact in the world if they know how to use the tools properly. And so, I always encourage kids to like go down ChatGPT rabbit holes. Like, I don't know, like, I'm pretty sure there's like teachers out there that discourage the use of like ChatGPT and stuff like that. But it's like, no, like, come on, like everyone uses it. Like, this is the real world. Come on. And so it's like, okay, like let's learn how to prompt engineer properly. Prompt engineer properly. Let's learn how to use these things to like our advantage. And so I really encourage students to go out there and like experiment with things and just like, get their hands a little bit dirty, and just try out experiment with all the stuff that's happening in the world. And the most successful people again in the world, they started honing in their craft at a young age. So all of these kids, who are, 13, 14, 15, whatever years old, they should be starting early. And if you look at like Kobe Bryant, he started playing basketball when he was like 4 years old, or Serena Williams was playing tennis when she was 3 years old. Right. Or, Elon Musk was playing building video games when he was 13, 14. So like basically the earlier they start, the better it is for them. And they have all the tools to do it.
Couldn't agree more. Again, I really appreciate you coming on, sharing the TKS story. For anybody that wants more information, go to the website, click on it in the comment section, take you directly there. You can reach out to Azar directly. Yeah, thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate you sharing this. For anybody that's listening, we'll be back again next week. Any founders out there, especially I encourage students, if you want to come to Founders Coffee, meet some real entrepreneurs, that every Tuesday, 7:30 a.m. And this is great. Again, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
No, it's great. Like I said, even in the pre-conversation we had, this is my favorite part of the week. I smile for an hour.
Yeah. Keep it going. Don't stop.
There's no plans to stop. No plans to stop. That's why you'd have to really wipe the smile off my face for me to stop. Awesome.
Good. Yeah, I appreciate it.